Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Chen fends off criticisms that his budget was stingy and appeals for more understanding. Rescuers in Inner Mongolia are searching for dozens of workers trapped when a coal mine collapsed. And Israeli troops kill 11 Palestinians and injure over 100 in the occupied West Bank. Many lawmakers have come out in support of the budget for the coming financial year, but some residents felt that the sweeteners unveiled by the financial secretary yesterday were a little sour. Not everyone is happy with the budget for the coming financial year. During a televised phone-in forum this morning, one caller said financial chief Chen was being stingy and shameful for offering just $5,000 in the latest consumption voucher scheme. The man pointed out that Macau has given its citizens an annual bonus of around $10,000 for many years. Chen responded with an idiom, saying the city cannot slap its face until it's swollen in an effort to look imposing. He noted that Hong Kong has suffered years of deficits and urged the caller to be more understanding. Another man accused Chen of stabbing smokers by increasing the tobacco tax. That raised the price of cigarettes by 60 cents a stick. The finance minister explained that the decision was made on the advice of the Health Bureau with the aim of lowering the smoking rate. In a meeting later with members of the Finance Committee, lawmakers including Eunice Ng of the New People's Party and Roundtable legislator Michael Chen expressed support for the budget. But Chen's call for tax reforms was brushed aside. The DAB's Benson Look said the government should consider allowing the Jockey Club to accept bets on other sports, such as basketball. That would allow it to broaden its sources of income while paying the government an annual special football betting duty of $2.4 billion for 5 years. But Chen said he doesn't want to promote gambling. Skeptics have expressed doubts on whether the Happy Hong Kong campaign announced in the budget yesterday can really put smiles back on the faces of Hong Kongers. But the government rejected setting a key performance indicator, or KPI, to track the progress of the project.
So we are not going to set a specific KPI, say, happiness is something that you can measure, right? Happiness is something that you can feel.
At the same press conference, Culture Chief Kevin Yeung was asked whether he has considered the problem of art censorship because of political reasons or conflicts of interest. Yeung is in charge of promoting arts and cultural development. He said Hong Kong is a very open society where people can find various forms of art with different subjects and expressions. But he stressed artists must abide by the law. There's been another suspected arson case in a playground in Kwai Chung, the second such incident in less than a month. The latest blaze began on a slide at the Shackley Estate playground at around 1:30 a.m. Footage from a viewer shows smoke rising into the air. The blaze was put out in 10 minutes. Reports from the scene say one person suffered a hand injury. Earlier this month, fire damaged equipment at another playground 750 meters away. It's not known if the two cases are connected. Chief Executive John Lee has met senior officials in Guangdong to discuss the joint development of the Greater Bay Area.
This is also an exercise to build up relationship, which is important after 3 years separation, when we can only conduct meetings online, which I think everybody knows is not a good experience, and it's not a very positive thing in building up mutual understanding.
In his first visit as chief executive to the region bordering Hong Kong, Lee was accompanied by senior aides, including Mainland Affairs Minister Eric Tsang and Deputy Chief Secretary Chek Weng-hing. Lee said his talks with Guangdong Party Secretary Huang Kunming and Governor Wang Weizhong resulted in reaching a consensus on making use of innovative technology to promote development in the region. The Hong Kong delegation headed to Shenzhen to discuss greater cooperation before wrapping up their one-day trip. Prepaid SIM cards which have not been registered in the real name of their owners will be deactivated tomorrow. Telecoms service providers have sent SMS reminders to unregistered users, but those who failed to register by today's deadline can submit the application to their service providers, as long as their SIM cards still have a stored value balance and have not expired. A search and rescue operation has been stepped up in Inner Mongolia after a coal mine collapsed, killing at least 5 people. Hundreds of firefighters have been deployed to hunt for 48 missing workers. Chen reports.
Surveillance footage showed the moment an open-pit coal mine collapsed in Inner Mongolia. The disaster occurred at around 1 p.m. yesterday in Elsa Lake Prefecture. Within a minute, dozens of workers were buried under the debris, which was said to be 80 meters high. Most of them were dump truck and excavator drivers. 5 were killed and 6 injured. A search was launched for 48 workers and accounted for. At least 300 firefighters and 6 rescue dogs were deployed. More teams are expected to join them to speed up the operation. President Xi Jinping told rescue workers to make every possible effort to rescue the missing people and treat the injured. But a landslide yesterday evening halted the operation overnight. Premier Li Keqiang ordered a speedy investigation into the cause of the collapse. There are questions over the safety of mines in China, which is the biggest producer and consumer of coal. Xinjiang Coal Mining Company, which operates the mine that collapsed, was reportedly fined several times last year for violating safety regulations. In 2021, at least 240 people were killed in about 400 mining accidents on the mainland. Almost half of the incidents happened in coal mines. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Overseas, Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia and Egypt, have condemned Israel for a military raid that killed at least 11 Palestinians and injured more than 100 in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinians described the assault as a massacre and called on the United Nations Security Council to hold an emergency meeting. Sachin Kafe reports.
Heavily armed Israeli troops charged into the occupied West Bank city of Nablus, triggering panic. They wanted to arrest 3 people suspected of carrying out attacks earlier. Body cam footage released by the army showed soldiers running through the streets and using a rocket launcher to reduce a building to rubble. Tear gas shells were fired inside residential buildings. The raid in mid-morning killed and wounded bystanders in crowded streets. Angry Palestinians responded by pelting Israeli army vehicles with stones. Homes and businesses were destroyed and people gathered outside the local hospital as the injured were brought in. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan joined Arab countries in condemning Israel, while the United States expressed deep concern.
We wish a speedy recovery to those injured, and our hearts go out to the families of the innocent bystanders who were killed today. We are deeply concerned by the large number of injuries and the loss of civilian lives.
Grieving Palestinians buried the victims, who included a 72-year-old man and a 16-year-old boy. The casualty toll was the highest so far this year under Israel's far-right government. The Palestinian Authority urged the United Nations Security Council to hold an emergency meeting in a bid to prevent further bloodshed. As tensions rose, Israeli planes targeted several buildings in the Gaza Strip, saying they were in response to Palestinian rocket attacks. Sachin Kadvi, HKIBC.
Inflation in Hong Kong has risen on the back of significant increases in the price of utilities and food last month. The authorities say the early arrival of the Lunar New Year this year also added to the inflationary pressure. Chloe Fong reports.
Just one day after the financial secretary warned of a significant jump in inflation this year, January's data confirmed his prediction. Hong Kong's overall consumer price index rose 2.4% year-on-year to a 4-month high. The figure was 0.4% higher than December's rate. A government spokesman said the increase was partly due to the early arrival of the Lunar New Year, which fell in January this year, whereas last year it was in February. He said it will be more meaningful to examine the data for January and February combined for a more accurate picture on inflation. Analyzing by sectors, electricity, gas, and water saw the largest jump at over 20% year-on-year, while basic food as well as clothing and footwear saw increases of around 6%. Dining out and takeaway food were also more expensive. Looking ahead, the authorities expect costs to increase along with the economic recovery. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
The operator of the Hong Kong stock market has responded to a suggestion by the financial secretary and is studying how to conduct trading in bad weather, including typhoons.
To become an international financial center, it is critical that our markets remain competitive and available to investors to the extent that international markets are open. We want to make sure that we attract the most investors from around the world.
Augustin's remarks came on the day that Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing reported its first drop in profits in 6 years. Net profit for last year plunged 20% from 2021 to $10 billion. But net profit in the 3 months to December was a quarterly high at over $2.9 billion. Hong Kong exchanges closed almost flat today. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 72 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Alibaba was up $2.20, Trucker Fund down 6 cents. JD.com up $3.30, Baidu down 70 cents. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 8.31, pounds at 9.44, and Australian dollar at 5.35. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is down 30 points. On to the weather now. It will be warm and dry during the day tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 17 and 26 degrees. Expect lots of sunshine over the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Good evening.